Eric, he has got a lot to do. One of the first things he's going to be asked today, though, if anybody gets any press time anywhere near him, is his response to President Obama's comments yesterday on tax cuts. What do you expect Mr. Romney to do? He's kind of somewhat backed into a corner because the president has framed this as I don't want to help guys like that Governor Romney dude.
Well, everything is positioning and posturing and, should I go on the vacation? Should I not go on the vacation? And it's very, very difficult to read with either candidate, the president or Romney, what they're going to say on any given day because they're reading poll numbers, on an ongoing basis. So you can expect a curveball or a mistake on any given day now. And right now, everything is amplified. Just like it's fine that Romney goes away, but we'll all talk about it because now he's a rich guy who went on a rich vacation. And the president goffs, and you guys will talk about that too, because he's supposed to be in office. Everybody takes a vacation. We'll talk about a lot of silly things. At the end of the day, my house is still worth less. It still costs a lot of money to fill up my car at the pump. That's what the issues are. That's why people are getting impassioned and interested and involved.
All right. Brad, what should Governor Romney say today, and what do you think he will say about these tax cuts? Simply a response. Do you think his response will be and should be, we need tax cuts to keep all the Bush-era tax cuts?
Absolutely. Well, these aren't the Bush-era tax cuts. These are the Obama tax cuts. The fact of the matter is the president ran against the Bush tax cuts, and now what has he done? He's re-upped them, and he's likely to re-up them again. The problem is that he wants to divide us. He wants to pit one group against the other when we're all in this thing together. And the people who create jobs are the people at the highest end of the rung. The president's rich himself. The problem with the president is he got rich by being famous. He didn't produce anything, and he didn't hire anybody, and he didn't build anything other than building his own persona. So when the president talks about everybody else, he's talking about himself. The president's the one percenter. The president is trying to divide America to deflect against his record. Well, but the bottom line is we shouldn't be raising taxes on anybody. That should be Mitt Romney's mantra.
I mean, he's a new one percenter. I mean, this is a guy who hadn't paid off his college loans until his first book became a bestseller. So he's sort of new at that.
But he's got a net worth of $10 million. Yeah, he acts like he just fell off the turnip truck. Come on.
Anybody who sits in the Oval Office is going to have a high net worth period for the rest of their lives. They're going to live in that.
Yeah, but he got rich. He got rich by being famous. That's how he got rich.
And look, and by the way, I agree that I know about Romney pre-politics and at Bain, and I know he's getting knocked for it a lot, and I think it's ridiculous, and I'm a Democrat, and I'm a supporter of Obama. I see nothing wrong whatsoever with what he did, and I don't believe we should be knocking him at all.
Brad, I want to bring in some of our viewer comments here. Wildcat says 21 new taxes, and still President Obama wants to raise taxes. Can you read this? Says what tax cuts? He's raising taxes on people making over $250,000. And Mike Carter, who always thinks that I am completely unfair and unbalanced, says rich vacation. How much of the president's vacations to Martha's Vineyard cost over the last 3 years? Fair and balanced, right? Mike, thank you, as always, for being there. And Griffin57, Sarah, says, and here's a question, which Mike will say is a very liberal, loaded question that I'm asking you, Brad, but you're from the Republican side, so that's why I ask you these questions. Sarah says, what was so wrong with the tax levels of the 90s? What is wrong with President Obama's point was we did pretty well under the Clintonian tax code.
But we're not doing well now. We're not doing well at all.
Well, we're not under the Clintonian tax code. We're under a Bush-era tax code.
And that's all the more reason why you want to give as much incentive as possible to those people to create jobs. You want to eliminate capital gains, in my opinion. You want to scrap an unfair tax code, and you want to give certainty and surety to the marketplace that they're going to know what the future will bring them in the next 5 years. Just like a corporation has a 5-year plan, America can't even get a yearly budget. Even when the president controlled both houses of Congress and the presidency was unable to produce a budget. So what you need to do is you need to prime the pump by giving money to the people, not giving money to the government to spend more money that they shouldn't be spending.
Eric?
Yeah, I think that the comparing one decade to another decade, it's apples and oranges. The whole world changed. Right. I mean, Iraq happened. The financial apple cart got tipped just there alone. I mean, and you can pick a million different places that, that it did. Yeah.
fair point. Carry on. So, but do you believe that the president is right in saying the wealthiest Americans, that wealthiest 1%, and that is where this would end up mainly. There's an interesting graph in Talking Points memos today. I don't know if you've seen it, Brad. I'll get to you in a minute on that. But this 1% are the one, that's what we're really arguing about here, whether that 1%
well, yeah,
of
we're
wealthiest
having a
Americans
big argument about the 1%, and 99% of the others vote. So, yes, we have a big argument, and we have a big argument about the $250,000 a year. I mean, now it depends what market you live in.
Sure.
Sounds like an awful lot of money, but just you live in New York City, it's not an awful lot of money.
It's not an awful lot here.
You can get by, and I mean, maybe close to paycheck on that kind of money in this particular city. But,
right.
you know, that's where we're drawing the line. And, you know, so it's the age-old debate. Who's going to pay? And I think everybody has to pay.
Brad, what about that, the point that it is really what we're fighting about here is everybody agrees middle-class Americans need those tax breaks that are already there. They do not need any extra taxes right now. But this very, very wealthy top 1% really can manage without them.
Well, here's the problem. You could tax the 1% at 100% of their income. We're not going to make a dent against a $16 trillion deficit and our annual budget. This is a red herring. The problem is we have a government that spends too much and takes in too little. If we reduce the size of government and make them responsible to the people and every dollar that's spent, we'll be able to create more jobs, pay down the deficit. You know why? Because we're taking in more money. And we're taking in more money because people are more successful. You don't penalize people for success. You herald success. And on the other side of the coin is you don't create new government agencies that we can't afford, like Obamacare.
Barrett?
You know, I think that the whole notion that I don't want to feel bad about being successful. I don't. You know, I'm a Democrat again. I'm from the left. I support Obama, but I don't want to feel guilty about any success that I may ever have in my career, which is now really the position that anybody is successful is put into. If you have money, you ought to be able to help everybody else out. And, you know, I don't know that that's possible. And the fact, which it's just a fact. It doesn't matter whether we agree or disagree, is that we can tax the upper 1%. 100% of what they have, and it's not going to put a dent, you're right, in the problems that we have now. I think there's a lot of people walking around with a little delusional thinking that because that 1% can afford it, we can tax them. That's not the answer to the problem.